Hello, good morning. We are live on NTN today, Thursday, the 27th of May, 2021, for another morning update. Thank you for making this your wake-up station, your morning station for the latest developments coming out of the government of St. Lucia. My name is Jessie Leonce, and for the next 45 minutes or so, I will be bringing you some of the latest updates, chief among them being the Prime Minister is back on the job after a 14-day quarantine period after returning from Miami on a business trip. And he did speak to the nation, his followers on social media, letting them know that he was back on, and also speaking on the latest developments in terms of crime and violence, and also the work that his ministry is doing. So stay tuned for that. We'll be hearing from the Prime Minister, Honorable Alan Chasney, in just a moment. We also have the update, as usual, coming from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. We have 13 new cases of COVID-19, as well as some 37 individuals recovering from the virus. We'll also give you the latest figures in terms of the vaccination so far, where you can go to get vaccinated today if you are interested as well. In the news, our 24-hour news cycle, we have the first phase of the desilting of the John Compton Dam being complete. And this is something that has weighed on the hearts and minds of many persons. And at this time, they have made significant progress with the first phase being completed. The Ministry of Education is to implement a comprehensive strategy for the safety of students and caring for those entrusted with the health and wellness of others. There was a presentation of care packages being made out to nurses. You would recall that we had shown you some of the highlights of the International Nurses Day observation, and of course the Ministry of Health and Wellness in turn opted to show and recognize the outstanding nurses here on island, particularly in this COVID-19 situation. So stay tuned for these stories and more coming up directly after this short break.
With all that's happening around us, simple adjustments are necessary to keep us all safe. When calling 911, we may need a little more information to deploy the right personnel and protocols. You may be asked about your travel history, signs and symptoms, contact and movement history, and whether others in your household are exhibiting similar symptoms. Please be patient and cooperative during this time to ensure you receive the best possible care while keeping our first responders safe.
Do you know we can limit the spread of the COVID-19 virus? The Ministry of Health is your partner in achieving this solution. Introducing the Amber Wristwatch. The Amber Wristwatch is designed for monitoring daily movements while in quarantine. It provides an accurate location and a precise heart rate. The device is also waterproof and can be worn during all daily functions, like washing the dishes or taking a shower. It's worn like a typical timepiece. The Ministry of Health can now better monitor people in home quarantine and receive alerts of those who do not stay in the confines of their home. A 14-day rental of the Amber Wristwatch is just $75 US. Let us stop the breaches of home quarantine.
Thank you so much for staying with us. If you're just joining, a special good morning to you. We are live on NTN for the morning update for today, Thursday, the 27th of May, 2021. If you're joining us from the diaspora, St. Lucians out there in the diaspora, well-wishers globally, thank you so much for tuning in and keeping abreast with what's happening in your island home. We have the Prime Minister, Honorable Alan Chasney. He just came out of a 14-day quarantine following a mission to the United States of America, and he's back on the job. Let's just go to our first clip of the morning of the Prime Minister, just giving an indication of his feelings and anticipation, expectations for his return to work.
Hey, good evening to everybody. Today is my first day back in the office since I was out on quarantine, and it was great to be back with my colleague ministers after having to participate in cabinet through Zoom. We had a pretty busy day today, getting caught up on a lot of financial matters with the Ministry of Finance. I want to really thank them for the incredible job they've been doing. Tomorrow can be another very busy day. I have to go down to meet with a businessman down in Soufrière, come back up and do all-day meetings on our midterm strategy. But on another very, very important point.
Yeah, and speaking of that very important point, the Prime Minister did touch on the most unfortunate incidents, criminal activity happening over the weekend, claiming the lives of young people, and he did speak about that, giving out his sympathies to the loved ones of the individuals who lost their lives, and also speaking on the work of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force, not only in the COVID-19 context as we've grown used to engaging them on, but also the crime and violence situation.
I really want to send out my sympathies to Tisha Raphael, a young lady who was shot over the weekend in Jack Mill. And this is a very sad situation in our country, and I just want to appeal to young people that are involved in gangs, that St. Lucia is prospering and there is a better way and a better living, and to have a young person who was innocently shot is something that is horrific and really unacceptable. And I'm really appealing to them to look for a better way to make a contribution to our country. It's difficult, and the police, I really have to commend them. They've made several arrests, and recently many fines with guns and ammunition. And the new canine dogs that we have are working fantastic. So we are continuing to strengthen our police so they can do a better job in protecting all of us. But really, for the young people, there is a better way to move forward. And we certainly are appealing to you to embrace the new opportunities that are being created in the country, and to stop the unnecessary killing of a young, innocent person in the name of Tisha Raphael. And my heartfelt sympathies to her family.
That was Prime Minister Honorable Alan Chasney there, extending condolences to the loved ones of the individuals who lost their lives over the weekend. And of course, kudos going out to the Royal St. Lucia Police Force for a job well done in the continued fight against crime. We also heard from the Prime Minister as he emerged from his 14-day quarantine period. He did speak on the National Day of Prayer and Fasting. We will be bringing you some of the clippings of that in a subsequent broadcast, but the Prime Minister also then at that time did indicate that it's a time for unification. It's a time for us to have peaceful advancements, and of course all tying into that last word that he gave there. And speaking of which, the National Day of Prayer and Fasting, Praise and Thanksgiving happened on Monday, and I think many people are still in this atmosphere of prayer and fasting. Some people are still fasting going on until this weekend, in the continued observance of this important observance of St. Lucia. we do hope that you are continuing to keep St. Lucia in your prayers. We do hope that you are continuing to do the right thing, make the right decisions, and it doesn't necessarily have to be on the right side of the law, but sometimes it also incorporates and takes into consideration a degree of morality, you know, treating our neighbors kindly and being thoughtful of others and just doing the right thing. And you would know, we all have that conscience, we all know what is right to do. We will be having Pastor Yvonne coming tomorrow to join us just to wrap up the observance of the National Day of Prayer and Fasting. She will be here tomorrow, Friday, and she will be speaking. She did speak on Monday as well, and the Friday before that, gearing up for this observance. And just to put people's minds in the right place, particularly as we continue to plow through 2021. There are so many things that we have to look forward to come June, July. We have the reopening of the cruise sector. Slowly but surely, St. Lucians, you see, we're slowly reopening our society in full, enjoying something that we lived before. We also have the elections. They're constitutionally due this year. And the hope is that we can continue to be respectful of others. And I think that was one of the chiming words coming out of Monday's National Day of Prayer and Fasting, that while we go into the preparation for this electoral process, this national exercise, that we are able to do so while respectful of our fellow man. We continue with updates this morning. Significant infrastructure investment in the island's water sector continues to roll out with the completion of the first phase of the John Compton Dam. And this was the desilting project. We have Anicia Antoine with the details.
The first phase of the John Compton Dam project saw the removal of the sediments around the dam wall to clear the lower abstraction port, with the overall aim of increasing the plant's water reserve capacity. The John Compton Dam had accumulated over 1.7 million cubic meters of silt over the years, displacing over 400 million gallons of water. According to the head of the project management unit at WASCO, Gordon Wyke, a large share of the silt can be credited to the passage of devastating hurricanes and tropical storms, including Hurricane Thomas in 2010 and Tropical Storm Debbie in 1994.
Our dredging therefore took place from about October of last year till about February of this year, where we were able to remove about 85,000 cubic meters of sediment from the reservoir itself. So that reservoir immediately has more capacity, and it allowed us to clear that lower port completely. So that lower port is now available for use. So along with this, of course, is that we had to take the sediment from here and place it at what is known as the sediment disposal area. That area, so that the sediment is now there, that area was completed in January of this year and now accommodates the sediment we have removed. So the project in its initial phases is now fully complete with the successful removal of sediment, clearing the lower port, and the building of the sediment disposal area.
Chairman of the Board of Directors of the Water and Sewage Company, WASCO, Francis Denbo, explains that there is still a large amount of sediment to be removed, which may take up to approximately 10 years. WASCO's immediate goal, however, is to extract an additional 300,000 cubic meters of sediment.
And to illustrate the amount of silt, it's the equivalent of roughly 50 football fields. Each football field filled with 20 feet of silt. So that's a tremendous amount of silt that has to be desilted or extracted from the dam to go into the sediment disposal area. And there is no way that this could be done within 1 year or 2 years. It's a long process. It's a long process between 1 year to ultimately 10 years, 8 to 10 years to do that process. And why? In any 1 year, you could only extract roughly 200,000 cubic meters of silt. And you could only do that during the rainy season. You cannot extract silt from the dam during the dry season or during the drought.
Minister for Agriculture, Fisheries, Natural Resources and Cooperatives, Honorable Ezekiel Joseph, expressed his satisfaction with the work done by the WASCO team and contractors, saying that the milestones achieved thus far on this initiative ties into the broader program agenda for development within the sector.
I mean, it was very challenging, and like we just said a while ago, we have no control over the weather. And when we gave a contract to do the construction of the sediment disposal area, we targeted to coincide with the dry season. Unfortunately, that year it was not a traditional dry season; it was a rainy season, and with the contractor, unfortunately, lost almost a 1 year of downtime as it pertains to the impact of the rain that affected the dredging. But I must say, it's something new to us in the region. And we have learned from the experience, and we were able to accomplish it because there have been talk from since Thomas 2010 as far as dredging the John Compton Dam.
The second phase of the John Compton Dam desilting project is expected to commence in approximately 3 months. From the Communications Unit of the Ministry of Agriculture, I am Anicia Antoine reporting.
Thank you, Anicia, for that report. Do stay with us. So we are due for a break. When we come back, we have the latest figures of COVID-19.
Hi, I'm Jim Joseph, President of the Bosseju Community Group. We believe St. Lucia can win the war against the coronavirus, and here's how. Every community in St. Lucia must mobilize, coordinate, monitor and support residents the way we would before, during and after a natural disaster. Identify volunteers in your community, assign them roles and deploy them. Ensure your elderly and vulnerable understand all protocols. Help relatives, shield them from unnecessary contact with others. Identify those recently unemployed and vulnerable neighbors living alone. Put systems in place to filter updates from official sources throughout your community. Promote the hotline number 311. If it takes a village to raise a child, then all of us can come together to defend the village against the coronavirus. Let's do it.
Together let us win this war. St. Lucia be a soldier. Together we can beat this corona. We can win this war. Get vaccinated. We're taking our life back. Get vaccinated. We know what to do. Get vaccinated. COVID-19 we won't lose to you. Oh no. Take 2 doses, take our life back. Time for a brand new day. Take 2 doses, take our life back. To live and work and play. Take 2 doses, take our life back. The health experts we trust. Take 2 doses, take our life back. Vaccinate for you, for yours, for us.
Let's take our life back with a safe and effective AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine. The mobile vaccination drive is coming to you. Visit the Ministry of Health and Wellness and Bureau of Health Education Facebook pages for more information. Let's take our life back. Vaccinate for you, for yours, for us.
Get vaccinated.
This message is brought to you by the Bureau of Health Education of the Ministry of Health and Wellness and this station.
Thank you so much for staying with us. This is the Morning Update live on NTN. We continue our program this morning with the latest word from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. St. Lucia is recording 12 new cases of COVID-19 as at Wednesday, 26th May. And that was out of a batch of 379 samples that were taken between the 21st to the 25th of this month. The samples were processed on the 25th, that same day. These individuals were seen at the various community respiratory clinics as per usual, asked to remain isolated away from others until the outcome of their test results. Now, for the 12 new cases, arrangements have since been made to place these new cases in isolation. The contact tracing for these newly diagnosed individuals is underway. Confirmation was also received of the recovery of 37 individuals, bringing the total number of active cases in country to 172. Now, presently, one of the active cases is not doing too well. They're in critical care at the respiratory hospital. The new cases bring the total number of cases that have been diagnosed in this country. We're talking about imported cases, persons who have been repatriated to their countries, St. Lucians who've contracted, all cases that have been documented in this country to date to 4,980. Now, as of yesterday, Well, as of day before yesterday, that was Tuesday, May 25th, 2021, a total of 27,588 individuals received their first dose of the vaccine, and 18,151 individuals received their second dose to date. Now, today, if you have a mind, you want to get vaccinated, today, Thursday, you can go to the VG Sports Complex right outside our building. You can go get vaccinated there. And if you're down in Viewfort and environs, you want to get vaccinated, you've made up your mind, you've read up, you've researched, you've spoken to doctor friends of yours, you know you want to get vaccinated, go to the Philip Marsley grounds and, of course, bring with you a national ID or your driver's license, any form of identification so that they can put you in the system. But I think also important is pre-registration. It's still important to get pre-registered so that the persons who are administering the vaccines, the health teams, they know how many vaccines to go with on a particular day. So you don't want them to go with 30 vaccines on a particular day because they saw on the pre-registration list 30 people indicated that they were coming on a particular day. But then you show up, you're not pre-registered, and they probably wouldn't have accommodated for you. So pre-register, go online, hmi.govt.lc, and you will be asked to fill out a form with some basic information so that they can put you in the system there as well. If you're going for your second dose, carry the vaccination card that you were given the first time you went to get vaccinated. So please take note of that. Today, Philip Marsley grounds in Viewfort and in Castries, right outside our building, the VG Sports Complex. They're administering the COVID-19 vaccines today. Now, the ministry is encouraging everyone to get vaccinated. We know that is the ongoing effort. The COVID-19 vaccination campaign has now been generalized, meaning that all adults 18 and older, you can go get vaccinated. They're not prioritizing any particular group or any particular person from any particular sector. If you are 18 and older, you can go get vaccinated. Yeah. So again, as usual, the admonition, the continued plea for persons to adhere to the COVID-19 protocols. I remind you too that we are still under a state of emergency, and we until any word comes out of the government of St. Lucia, we'll continue to be under a state of emergency until the 16th of October 2021. And so this is because of the curfew. You need a state of emergency to have a curfew. And so we hope that you guys are adhering to every single aspect of the protocols, including the curfew. So by 9 p.m., everybody should be in. Everybody should be home. Everybody should be huddled inside and waiting out when the curfew is done so that they could come back out to work and only do really the necessaries outdoors. So again, the continued plea by the Ministry of Health to continue practicing the infection prevention and control measures to reduce the spread of COVID-19. Now, we move on to a word from the Ministry of Education. Following some rash attacks in the education sector, officials from the ministry have been holding talks with key partner agencies on strategies that are going to keep students safe. We have details from Herma Dimac. She has a report.
A safety network for students is being created in response to a recent spate of attacks on students in District 3. The Ministry of Education first met with the Royal St. Lucia Police Force to solicit their assistance. In the second phase of the creation of this network, the ministry held a meeting with stakeholders. Dr. Fiona Philip Meyer is the Chief Education Officer in the Ministry of Education.
As mentioned last week, we met with the police, very fruitful meeting, out of which came quite strategic plans to support our students and their well-being. Today we're meeting with the transport services as well as the police are represented. We have our Chief Transport Officer with us, principals are there as well, because we want to make sure that everybody works together for the good not only of our students, for the wider community.
School Health Safety Officer Bunej Kodra explained the meeting allowed stakeholders to discuss solutions to maintain the safety of students outside the school grounds.
Coming out of our meeting last week, we have already seen an increase in the presence of the police on the various bus stops. We have devised creative ways with the police in terms of keeping our students safe both on the way to school and from school. So we have several initiatives that we have already implemented, and we are looking to sustain most of those initiatives so that everybody would feel safe, whether they are going to school or coming from school.
Identifying that the transport sector plays a pertinent role in meeting this goal, students will be encouraged to utilize the school shuttle system instead of walking to and from school.
The way we do that is by having the school having a proper plan, working with the principal, the students, the teachers, as well as the parent. The parents also have a very important part to play, and that is to encourage the children to at least take the public bus, or at least communicate with the said associations who needs help and who doesn't need help.
The Royal St. Lucia Police Force has increased patrols at bus stops. Acting Inspector of Police Calixtus Shalmine says, although their resources are limited, they are committed to playing their part in the safety of students.
When we was invited to the meeting, we brainstormed as to the ways that in which that we can assist in curbing that situation that is presently on that area of Waterworks resident area. Our main focus will be traffic patrol. We have also identified as to what means that we're going to take in patrolling that area.
Nina Kodra Eugene, Acting Chief Transport Officer, ensured that the ministry will continue to collaborate with stakeholders to maintain the student safety network. From the Government Information Service, I'm Humadi Mark reporting.
Now, in light of the challenges that have been brought forward by COVID-19, we have Massey Stores St. Lucia Limited, in collaboration with the Love St. Lucia initiative, is providing manufacturers and suppliers with additional support. The largest retailer and supermarket chain in the Caribbean has chosen to help over a dozen micro, small and medium-sized enterprises, that is MSMEs, develop and improve their business operations in 2021. We have a report.
The rebranded Buy Local campaign, dubbed Love St. Lucia, was launched in June last year by the Ministry of Commerce in collaboration with Massey Stores, among other public and private sector partners. The campaign aims to build resilience in the St. Lucian economy by maximizing the potential of local industry, improving consumer awareness, and increasing domestic market share of local manufacturers and service providers. Division Head for Merchandising, Local Supplier Relations and Sales, Linda Auger, says Massey Stores has always worked very closely with local manufacturers and suppliers, so it was only natural that the company would back the initiative.
We believe that we owe it to the public to have the St. Lucian product, and we'll also encourage the growth of our St. Lucian manufacturers and suppliers.
According to Mrs. Auger, since the larger companies tend to already have the infrastructure, Massey Stores will collaborate more with the smaller and medium-sized suppliers to develop and improve their business operations.
We have a lot of small and medium suppliers with great ideas, young people who want to start a new business and have also seen the dearth in the market of certain products and want to do some things, but they need guidance. So these are the people we really try to work with, and in various ways. They come to us, we give them ideas of what products we're looking for, because you can't have everybody just doing the same product, and you'll find in some categories that we really have only one choice or even two choices, and maybe they're just imported.
Two of the suppliers featured for the year thus far are Artisan Pastry Limited and vegan ice cream makers Two Scoops. Artisan Pastries, owned by husband and wife, Michelle and Gail Reggie, who with the help of a handful of staff produce a line of freshly baked quality French pastries with no preservatives.
I feel very happy that I'm able to do something that people enjoy, something different, something that I'm proud of, something that I know it's healthy, and it's something that is available overseas, and then I'm happy that we can bring it here so that everybody can taste a little of what's in Martinique or even in France at a reasonable price.
The owners of Two Scoops, Didymus Mayers and Deborah Donai, are the only producers of vegan ice cream on island. What inspired their journey, Ms. Donai says, was the need to come up with a product that people who are lactose intolerant could still enjoy.
Me working at the hotels and realizing how many people are actually going down the vegan road now, and we basically didn't have much vegan products that way in St. Lucia. So I decided to try my hand at coming up with the local flavor ice creams and get a particular base milk, vegan milk base, a plant-based milk I should say, that would work for ice creams, that we'll get a nice creamy product, and we came up with what we have right now.
Massey Stores St. Lucia Limited, through the Love St. Lucia campaign, continues to provide support to small and medium-sized suppliers like Artisan Pastry Limited and Two Scoops, helping them build capacity so they can expand and play a more significant role in rebuilding the island's economy. From the Government Information Service, Lucia Joseph reporting.
Thank you, Lisa, for that report. We are coming due for a break, but first, just want to remind you of the curfew, as I mentioned earlier, 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. daily. So business operations should cease in time for your staff to be able to get home for 9 p.m. to remain in adherence to the state of emergency curfew. Restrictions on social gatherings continue. Social gatherings are restricted to no more than 10 people of the immediate family. In public and private settings, individuals are encouraged to limit their contact as much as possible and adhere to all the necessary protocols, as well as being mindful to the general hygiene procedure. No allowance is being given for mass gatherings, any social events of any kind, nor are loud music permits being given right now. The point remains, and it continues to be, that you limit your social interactions as much as possible. Because despite us inching closer to the 30,000 mark of individuals receiving their first dose of the vaccine, inching to a 20,000 marker of persons receiving their second dose, we're still a long way off here in St. Lucia from attaining herd immunity. Now we need to continue to adhere to the protocols to continue to protect a still very vulnerable population. In terms of religious institutions, all daily or regular church and religious services are permitted in accordance with social distancing protocols. Religious institutions may carry out services according to the square footage of the physical premises. This is guided by each institution's guidelines and protocols approved by the Ministries of Equity and Health. Special religious rites, including baptisms, weddings, funerals, will be limited to a maximum of 50 individuals, that is inclusive of observers and the service leaders. In terms of special events, we're talking boat excursions for up to 10 persons. This is only permissible for crude yacht, charters, and family boaters. Excursion plans must be reported to the lighthouse ahead of the journey. Absolutely no day boat party charters will be allowed. So no boat rides, no party rides on the high seas. Restrictions on alcohol sales. The sale of alcohol is being permitted at supermarkets, mini-marts, gas stations, restaurants and bars. Standalone bars to operate during the business hours of 11 a.m. until 8 p.m., allowing only takeaway services. Licensed restaurants are permitted to serve liquor as part of the dine-in services. Strict measures of protocol enforcement and a no-tolerance policy will be in effect. Licensed, emphasis on licensed restaurants and bars, will have to display all necessary licenses and revised capacity as per COVID-19 protocols for their establishment in a conspicuous place. And we're saying this because if law enforcement comes by to ascertain the degree of right that you have under the protocols, they would need to be able to see that license. Restrictions on sporting activity. All competitive and high contact sporting activities, inclusive of indoor and outdoor trainings, local competitions or social activities, are prohibited. Provisions apply for individual or immediate family household to exercise in a safe open air space. Gyms are permitted per square footage and protocols similar to churches. A non-contact sporting activity is allowed if there are no more than 15 persons in attendance, excluding spectators and crowds. And as you know, school is open. Schools are allowed in-class training and instruction for the third term. So they are also, as you heard earlier, following very strict protocols and regulations issued by the Ministry of Health and Wellness as well as the Ministry of Education. Their continuity plan for schools in St. Lucia to operate in a safe and specified system as well. As I said, we're due for a break. When we come back, we have some more updates for you.
What's in the food you're eating? Do you really even know? All the chemicals and hormones used to accelerate their growth. All the artificial flavoring, sweeteners and colors too. We consume and we don't spare a thought for the damage that they'll do. No, think about the children. Think about the children. How will we save them? Chemicals and GMOs are not the solution. Use organic and join.
Excessive agrochemical use, additives and genetically modified foods are harmful to health and the environment. Join the good food revolution. Grow, buy and consume organic. A message from Rise St. Lucia and the Ministry of Sustainable Development with funding from the GEF Small Grants Program, UNDP.
The good food revolution.
Sanitizer, better yet use soap and water.
We must protect each other if we are to beat this corona.
Together let us win this war. Be a soldier for St. Lucia. Together let us win this war. Be a soldier, together we can beat this corona.
So you don't become the next case. Avoid touching your face. I'm sure you've been told so. Handshakes and hugging around, no.
Advice, give you the please. Cover your mouth and your nose if you cough or sneeze.
Practice social distancing and avoid large social gatherings.
Together let us win this war. Be a soldier for St. Lucia. Together let us win this war. St. Lucia, be a soldier. Together we can beat this corona.
For further information, please contact the hotline at 311 or the Bureau of Health Education at 468-5349.
Thank you so much for staying tuned. The nurses around the island receive care packages as a token of gratitude and support for the work that they continue to do. As you know, we observed International Nurses Day this month. We have a report from Fernell Neptune.
The St. Lucia Nurses Association recently presented care packages to the nurses at the Millennium Heights Medical Complex, expressing appreciation for their commitment to the profession. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Health, Benson Emil, expressed heartfelt gratitude to the nurses for the services they extend to the public.
As St. Lucians, we're grateful. As an institution in the Millennium Heights Medical Complex, we're grateful. As a Ministry of Health and Wellness, we're eternally grateful for the services that you provide and the services that you continue to provide. As much as possible, we will support you in your endeavor, but we know that you are the ones on the ground. You are the ones making the commitment. You are the ones making that self-sacrifice every day to ensure that we cared for as citizens of St. Lucia.
Chief Executive Officer of the Millennium Heights Medical Complex, Siobhan James Alexander, says she's extremely proud of the nurses and will continue working with them to bring about success.
It's indeed a pleasure that we're standing here, that I am standing here, and recognizing your efforts. The last year, I am sure, has been overwhelming. And we must recognize your dedication, your loyalty, your selflessness. And I think sometimes these things go unheard of and unspoken about, but we need to always celebrate our key wins. And for us to actually achieve what we've done over the year, despite all odds, is significant. And so for now, I want us to celebrate that win. Let's give ourselves a tap on the back and say thank you. The nurses have been phenomenal.
President of the St. Lucia Nurses Association, Lucia Baptiste, saluted the nurses and asked them to continue being indispensable. Reporting from the Communications Unit of the Ministry of Health and Wellness, I am Fennel Neptune.
In our morning update, we had on the 22nd of May, St. Lucia joining the global community in observing International Day for Biological Diversity under the theme, We're Part of the Solution. The United Nations designation is focused on issues of climate change, food and water security, health and sustainable livelihoods. Take a look.
International Day for Biological Diversity, celebrated annually on May 22, is geared towards increasing the understanding and awareness of biodiversity issues. This year's theme, We're Part of the Solution, was chosen to be a continuation of the momentum generated in 2020 under the overarching theme, Our Solutions Are in Nature, which served as a reminder that biodiversity remains the answer to several sustainable development challenges. Organization of Eastern Caribbean States OECS's technical specialist in the Environment and Sustainability Division, Janelle Gabriel, stated that humans depend on biodiversity for a number of things, including food, shelter, and livelihoods, and sometimes it is hard to maintain the balance.
We rely on these resources, so we need trees to build our homes, we need clean water to bathe and to drink, and so sometimes we have overexploited some of these resources. Sometimes we have bad farming practices which deplete our soils of the nutrients which we need. It depletes it of some of those beneficial viruses and bacteria and microorganisms which we need. So our actions have sometimes had impacts on biodiversity, and so that's why we can come in now and be the solution by changing our own human behavior.
From nature-based solutions to climate, health issues, food and water security, and sustainable livelihoods, biodiversity is the foundation upon which humans can build back better. Acting Chief Forestry Officer in the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Natural Resources, Physical Planning and Cooperatives, Alwyn Donnelly, explained that programs have been put in place to preserve biodiversity.
The Forestry Department has had this program of selective harvesting. For example, in the forest, people who were into house making and timber production went into selective harvesting. So there were certain criteria that we would use to be able to sell trees. If the species we had found that it had been over-harvested, then, in certain locations, we would not remove remaining individuals, We would also look at the topographic area, how close it is, to water sources, and even has been so specific that if you remove one tree, what damage that it will cause, to the microclimate. So we did those things.
Biodiversity looks at the human well-being in the present and in the future, and its rapid decline threatens nature and people alike. According to the Global Assessment Report on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services in 2019 by the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services at UNESCO, the main global drivers of biodiversity loss are climate change, invasive species, overexploitation of natural resources, pollution, and urbanization. From the Government Information Service, I am Janelle Norville.
Thank you, Janelle, for that report. That brings us to the end of our morning program. Just to go over the updates coming out of the government of St. Lucia. Prime Minister Honorable Alan Chasney is back on the job after a fortnight of quarantining, 14 days after he had his mission to the United States of America. He's received a clean bill of health and he's back on the job, and he did speak to some of the work that he's looking forward to doing, not just his government work, but also work in the constituencies as well. well. And also, he did indicate and extend condolences to the family, the loved ones of the individuals who lost their lives violently over this past weekend, and giving kudos to the Royal St. Lucia Police Force with respect to the efforts so far at crime fighting. We also had the first phase of the desilting project at the John Compton Dam. It's been completed, and we heard from the Ministry of Agriculture there giving us an update on the work that has been done and the work that has to be done in the coming months. The Ministry of Education has indicated that it will implement a comprehensive strategy for the safety of students. You would recall some violent incidents have happened recently since the reopening of the third term of the school year, and so far they've resolved to institute a strategy that will strengthen school safety and caring for those entrusted with the health and wellness of the nation. As part of observances for the International Day of Nurses, we had the Ministry of Health and Wellness distributing care packages to our nurses island-wide, and we'd like to thank you all so much for the work that you continue to do, particularly as we continue to respond to COVID-19, fight COVID-19. Nurses have been on the very front line of this COVID-19 response from the beginning up until this point, this juncture where we're at in terms of the COVID-19 vaccinations. They're the ones administering the vaccines at the various vaccination sites. And speaking of which, today, if you want to get vaccinated, you can do so at the Philip Marsley grounds in Vieux-Fort, as well as the VG Sports Complex just outside our building there. Ensure that you pre-register hmi.govt.lc. When you are going to the site, carry with you a national identification card or any form of identification so that they know who you are. They can put you in the system as having been inoculated. If you're going for the second time, ensure that you carry the vaccination card that they would have administered to you in the first instance. 12 new cases of COVID-19 to report, as well as 37 individuals have recovered. That's wonderful news. We haven't heard of anyone succumbing with anything related to COVID-19, so that is wonderful news so far in the last 24 hours. The number of active cases right now in country stands at 172. Could be better, because we know that the Ministry of Health and Wellness would like to see the figure much lower in terms of how they're managing COVID-19 right now. We heard from Dr. Carissa Etienne just yesterday that so far in the Americas we're seeing a reduction. Despite the high numbers, still we're seeing a reduction in the number of cases, the number of hospitalizations, the number of people succumbing to complications of COVID-19. However, we still need to keep guarded, we still need to be vigilant, and we need to become more aggressive with the vaccination programming in our part of the world. And right now we know that the Ministry of Health and Wellness is pulling out all the stops to ensure that persons come in and get vaccinated against COVID-19. It has definitely proven, when you look at the statistics for the United States, for instance, Dr. Etienne did indicate that there has been a direct correlation between a reduction in the rate of COVID-19 infections to the number of vaccinations, the rate of vaccinations that have been happening in that in that territory, the United States. We've come to the end of our morning program. I'd like to thank you so much for watching. Do keep safe. Continue adhering to the protocols. Don't think, so much time has passed, the whole year already, that over. This is not a seasonal thing. It's here to stay. And while there are various measures, contingencies, different ways to manage, mechanisms being put in place to manage COVID-19, we will be dealing with it according to the experts for a couple years. And we do hope that everyone is getting in tune with that idea that COVID-19 is here, it's here to stay, and particularly if you have any underlying conditions, your family members have underlying conditions, you are prone, you are susceptible to having complications if the COVID-19 hits you, if you get infected. So please take all precaution, ensure that you wash your hands with soap and water frequently, use copious amounts of hand sanitizer, use your face mask when you're going out in public. I know it happens to me. I come out of the car, I forget the mask, I run back right in the car, pick it up, and just want to get into the groove of eventually knowing that you have to take your mask before you head out in public. Ensure that you observe the 6-foot distance. You know, I'm seeing, you know, here and there that some persons are just really couldn't be bothered anymore with the 6-foot distance, but it is still important, and it still is going a long way towards the COVID-19 effort. And not to mention the curfew, the other COVID-19 protocols that have been instituted for your protection, the work of the command center, you know, rolling out for your protection. We do hope everyone is keeping safe and playing their part. As I said yesterday, just want to go back to that, you know, the Prime Minister, the government of St. Lucia, they have their work cut out for them in terms of procuring COVID-19 vaccines and also the PPEs, because yeah, we've gotten thousands of personal protective equipment, but you know, these things are really disposable. You use the glove once, you have to put it in the rubbish. Use the mask a couple times, you have to dispose of it. So we still need to get personal protective equipment for not only our frontliners, but for everyone really within the public health system. We still need to get other supplies, and it's really an arduous task right now when you have these countries grabbing at resources from corporations, pharmaceutical companies, as much as they can for their own populations. And so the government has its work cut out for itself. You have your own responsibility as well. So while they're doing that hard mountain climbing, you're just being asked to take care of things in the valley. So please ensure that you play your part. Please adhere to the protocols meantime until we attain herd immunity. Yeah? Jessie Leon signing off for now. Enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers.